Snow whipped across the wreckage of a private jet, its fuselage torn open like a grave. The officer's flashlight cut through the storm, but it was Rex, his loyal K9, who froze first, ears sharp, growling low. What they discovered inside the icy shell would leave everyone speechless and horrified. The night sky was swallowed by a raging blizzard, snowflakes cutting like shards of glass through the freezing wind. Officer Mark pulled his coat tighter, his flashlight beam slicing across the whiteout. Beside him, Rex, his loyal K9 partner, trudged forward, paws sinking into the icy ground with quiet determination. They had been dispatched to investigate a faint distress signal reported near the forest edge, but nothing could have prepared them for what lay ahead. Through the howling wind, a looming shadow emerged. The wreck of a private jet sat half-buried in snow, its fuselage torn apart like a wound across the earth. Jagged metal twisted skyward, and pieces of shattered wing were scattered across the field. The plane's tail bore no markings, no name, just a hollow silence broken only by the storm that Mark's breath caught in his throat as Rex froze, ears pricked, growling low. The officer lifted his light toward the broken cabin door. Something about this crash felt wrong. Too quiet, too eerie, as if the wreck itself was holding its breath. That Rex's growl deepened, vibrating through the frozen air. His breath puffed white clouds as he planted his paws firmly in the snow, refusing to move closer to the jet without warning. Mark tugged gently on the leash, whispering, "Easy, boy." But Rex's instincts weren't swayed. His ears twitched, nose flaring, eyes locked on the jagged tear in the fuselage. Mark had worked with Rex long enough to know this wasn't random behavior. The dog wasn't spooked by wreckage. He was trained to detect danger. Whether it was explosives, contraband, or something far darker, Rex was never wrong. And tonight, his relentless focus screamed of something hidden in the shadows. The wind howled through the jet's broken frame, carrying eerie echoes that almost resembled whispers. One officer muttered nervously, "No survivors, right?" Mark didn't answer. His attention stayed on Rex, whose growls suddenly turned to sharp, urgent barks. The K9 lunged forward, tugging hard toward the gaping cabin door, claws scraping against the ice. That Mark's stomach twisted. Whatever lay inside that plane wasn't just wreckage. It was a secret Rex was determined to drag into the light. The metal groaned under the storm's weight, its jagged edges glistening with ice. Rex pulled hard on the leash, tail stiff, barking into the hollow darkness beyond the broken doorway. Every instinct in Mark screamed caution, but he pushed forward. Inside, silence ruled. The beam of his flashlight swept across rows of seats, many still upright, belts fastened tight, as if passengers had simply vanished into thin air. Frost clung to the upholstery, glimmering like shards of glass. Overhead bins hung open, spilling frozen clothes and belongings onto the aisle. The air was bitter cold, thick with the smell of fuel and metal. Rex padded ahead, nose low, his paws crunching on shattered glass. His growls softened into sharp whines, as if urging Mark deeper into the cabin. The officer's light caught a child's toy wedged between two seats, its bright colors dulled by frost. Mark's chest tightened. Whatever happened here hadn't been an ordinary crash, and Rex was determined to uncover why. Mark's flashlight beam drifted along the aisle, illuminating strange scorch marks etched into the fabric of several seats. They weren't from fire alone. The patterns looked deliberate, almost branded into the material. His brow furrowed as he brushed his gloved hand across one, the blackened edge crumbling beneath his touch. Suitcases lay unopened in the overhead compartments, their zippers frozen shut. Wallets, purses, even passports sat abandoned on the floor, untouched as if the passengers had been ripped from existence. But no bodies, not a single trace of human remains. The eerie emptiness pressed down like a weight, making every creak of the fuselage feel like a whisper from the dead. Rex's ears twitched as he sniffed along the aisle, his hackles raised. He paused at one row of seats and let out a sharp bark, clawing at the frozen carpet. Mark's chest tightened. Something had happened here, something violent, yet invisible to the eye. The officer swallowed hard. This wasn't just a crash site. It was a graveyard without graves, and Rex had only begun to peel back its secrets. Rex's barks grew sharper as he bolted toward the front of the cabin, claws scraping against the icy floor. His body pressed low, tail stiff, every movement screaming urgency. Mark hurried after him, heart pounding, until the dog skidded to a stop before the sealed cockpit door. The wood splintered under Rex's claws as he scratched furiously, growling like something alive waited inside. "Hold him back," one officer whispered, but Mark shook his head. He'd learned long ago that Rex's instincts were never wrong. With a swift nod, he ordered the door forced open. Metal screeched, the hinges giving way as the door burst inward. The beam of Mark's flashlight cut through the shadows, and his stomach dropped. The cockpit was a scene of chaos. Controls smashed, glass shattered, blood smeared across the console. A captain's log lay half-burned, its edges curling with ash. Mark picked it up carefully, squinting at the final, chilling words scrawled across the page. "We aren't alone up here." A shiver raced down his spine. Whatever brought this jet down, it hadn't been weather or mechanical failure. It had been something far darker. Rex's nose twitched as he circled the cockpit, whining sharply before pressing his snout against a panel near the floor. His paw struck it once, twice, until a hollow thud echoed. Mark crouched, running his glove across the panel. It wasn't part of the original design. Someone had built this section to be hidden. "Help me pry it open," Mark ordered. With a crowbar wedged into the seam, the officers heaved. The metal screeched before snapping loose, revealing a narrow compartment sealed tight against the elements. A stale, chemical odor spilled out, so strong it made their eyes water. Inside were stacks of binders, encrypted drives, and sealed cases marked with foreign insignias. That Mark's flashlight swept deeper, and the sight chilled him further. Strange equipment lay piled within, devices unmarked, their purposes unclear. Each item radiated secrecy, the kind that screamed classified. Rex growled low, pawing at one particular crate, his instincts drawing them closer to the darkest part of the mystery. This wasn't just wreckage anymore. The jet had carried something powerful, something someone had gone to terrifying lengths to keep hidden. Rex's growls intensified as he dragged Mark's attention toward the back of the compartment. His claws scraped the metal floor, signaling something more lay hidden. Mark's chest tightened as he pulled a lever tucked against the wall. With a hiss, another panel slid open, revealing a freezer-like chamber cloaked in frost. Cold air spilled out, burning against their skin. The officers leaned in, their flashlights trembling as beams pierced the icy dark. What they saw made every breath falter. Inside lay human remains, frozen, lifeless, sealed in neat rows like cargo. They weren't passengers. They had been transported, hidden, as if smuggled like contraband. One officer staggered back, muttering, "Dear God." The storm outside howled, but inside the jet, silence crushed them. Mark's hand tightened on Rex's leash, his stomach churning. The captain's final words suddenly took on horrifying weight. This wasn't just a crash. It was evidence of something monstrous, a secret flight carrying lives reduced to frozen shadows. And Rex, once again, had been the first to expose it. By dawn, the crash site swarmed with investigators, their voices clipped and urgent over the roar of the wind. What Mark and Rex uncovered spread quickly. This was no ordinary accident. The evidence pointed to a conspiracy buried in snow, one that reached far beyond the wreckage of a forgotten jet. News outlets scrambled for answers, but authorities released little. All they admitted was that the cargo inside would change the course of multiple investigations. For the families of those lost, the truth was a bitter revelation, but it was truth at last. Carved out of silence by one relentless K9. Mark knelt in the snow beside Rex, pulling him close, pride swelling through the weight of horror. "You saved them, partner," he whispered. Rex's tail wagged faintly, his sharp eyes still fixed on the wreck as if guarding the secret he had forced into the light. The jet would be remembered for its darkness. But Rex, the dog who refused to ignore it, would be remembered as the hero who exposed it.